Namaste, I bow to you. I feel the love in the sanctuary. Feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. Oh, we come together. 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 In the name of love. We come together. 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 In the name of love. We come together. 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 In the name of love. We come together. We come together. We come together. We come together.
I see joy, I see peace, I see goodness surrounding me. I see love in every breath I breathe. I see God in everything. I see happiness, I see freedom. I see the beauty that lives in me. I see perfection in what life brings. I see God in everything. I feel joy, I feel peace, I feel goodness surrounding me. I feel love in every breath I breathe. I feel God in everything. I feel happiness, I feel freedom. I feel the beauty that lives in me. I feel perfection in what life brings. I feel God in everything. I choose joy.
Well, good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you'd like to join us in our opening song, that's going to be Love Train. How you doing?
Good.
Good. We're just waiting for Love Train.
Waiting for Love Train.
Just waiting for Love Train. Go ahead.
Pull it out. It's yours too.
Check 1, 2.
All right. There it is. There's Love Train. All right. Stand up. Join hands. Start a love train. Love train. People all over the world. Join hands. Start a love train. Love train. The next stop that we make will be England. Tell all the folks in Russia and China too. Don't you know that it's time to get on board and let this train keep on riding, riding on through. People all over the world, join hands, start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands, start a love train, love train. All of your brothers over in Africa, tell all the folks in Egypt and Israel too. Please don't miss this train at the station, 'cause if you miss it, I feel sorry, sorry for you. People all over the world, join hands, start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands, start a love train, love train. Ride, let it ride, let it ride, let it ride. Start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands. Start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands. Start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands. Start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands. Start a love train, love train. People all over the world, join hands. Start a love train, love train. People all over the world. All right.
Well, good morning. Please take this time and tell your neighbors hello. It's our meet and greet. Okay, let's get in those last hugs and those last hellos. I'd like to welcome everyone today. And for those of you that are joining us on Facebook, good morning. If you're ever in the area, please feel free to stop by. We'd love for you to visit our spiritual community. We feel we have a very special community here. We hope that you would join us one day. I'd like to ask if there are any visitors that are joining us today for the first time. We have some visitors? We're glad to have you here. If you're new to Unity, what you'll find is Unity is not a religion. See how welcoming we are? We give you a whole row, not just one chair. Unity is not a religion. Unity is a philosophy. And Unity provides principles that will teach you to help you on your journey. And we have a packet for you. We like to call it a little gift that you can take with you. And it's just little pieces of information that teach you things about affirmative prayer, the way that Jesus taught, and about finding the power that's within each of us. So welcome. I'd like to also ask you to take this moment, if you would, and please silence your cell phones. And do we have any children here today that would like to come up and receive a special blessing? Jackson, would you like to join us? No? Okay. Okay, please join me. Children of light, we bless you. We see you loved, guided, and protected by God's presence. And in New Orleans style, we love you hard, hard, hard. We swear to God. I'd also like to mention that we do have a children's program, and so we teach the children the same principles that we learn here, except we teach them in words and with activities that they can understand. So always, please feel free to bring your children or your grandchildren, and we know that they would have a really nice experience here. I'd like to ask Carla to come up and read the daily word.
Sunday, April 28th, 2019. Today's word is healing. I praise and bless the life energy in my body and mind. Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore's healing from serious illness led to the founding of the Unity movement. She discovered that her intelligence could guide the life energy in her body. She wrote, "I began to teach my body and got marvelous results." Speaking words of strength and power, Myrtle praised the life in every part of her body. She prayed, asking for strength to think only kind, loving, and sincere thoughts about her body. Myrtle refused to be discouraged when her progress seemed slow. Eventually, in 2 years, she realized wholeness. Following Myrtle's example, I release all thoughts of weakness or disease. Instead, faith, I praise and bless the life energy in my body and mind. I realize wholeness. And today's scripture reading comes from the book of Luke, chapter 8, verse 48. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace."
We're going to take a moment to light the Christ candle. And the Christ candle is a reminder of what unity teaches. Unity teaches a union with God and a union with each other. And so that we can recognize and understand that we come from one source, one divine source, and that we are all activities in the mind of God. Thank you. Today's meditation and today's truth lesson will be presented by Paul Martinez. Paul?
What I missed?
You look like God.
Actually, as it will become more apparent, more like Arlo Guthrie. And yeah, he does sometimes. First of all, I want to say Happy Easter. There we go. Make sure this one's on when I... Yes. Because it's still Easter, for 2 reasons. One, today is the actual Easter for the Orthodox churches. It's because when the split took place, East and West followed different calendars. The West went with the Gregorian calendar and the East went with the Julian calendar. Don't ask me the difference because I don't really know, but it set up different dates for different things and different ways of figuring it out. So we have some people who work at where I work who are Orthodox, and last week everybody kept going Happy Easter. They're going, no, not yet. Also in the Roman Catholic tradition, the 2 great holidays of Christmas and Easter are all celebrated for 8 days. So today is the 8th day of Easter. So I heard a couple people say they missed church last week and they were sorry they missed Easter. Well, you didn't miss it. It's still Easter. And one of the things in the stories of the resurrection, when Jesus appeared to someone, the first words out of his mouth were, "Peace be with you." And we also heard in the story, every time Jesus healed someone, he would say, "Go in peace," or "Peace be with you." And to me, those words just are so poignant these days. And I'll talk some more on that in a little bit. So for the meditation today, I picked one of my favorite pieces of music done by an artist, Kataro. And it's simply entitled Song for Peace.
And so for the meditation today, just very quietly, while the song is playing, and it's a way I meditate a lot. I just let the music take me wherever. But focus on peace, especially that inner peace in yourself. everybody back? I've always loved that piece of music, and will become more apparent later. One of the things I like about it is above all the orchestration, you have that one note, which whenever Kitaro uses that sound, it's always a single note. And I've come to believe that that's his voice. That one note above it all will make a little more sense in a little bit. We come out of that place of peace, and then we look around. It's almost like every week the world is falling apart more and more and more. Just yesterday, the attack at a synagogue. And just a week ago, the horrific terrorist attack in Sri Lanka against Christians in their churches and tourists at their hotels on Easter Sunday, which was done in retaliation for the terrorist attack against Muslims in their mosques in New Zealand. And that part just seems to go on and on and on. And then we look at what's going on in this country, the Great Divide. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody talks anymore. Either you're on my side or their side, and nothing in between. And just look at our elections. None of it anymore is about what somebody can do or what they can bring. It's all about finding dirt on the other candidate. In fact, I read a little article last week. Now that Buttigieg is all of a sudden up in the polls, coming out of nowhere as a mayor, all the different other candidates and their groups are now researching, looking for dirt on him. Because usually when somebody's a politician and been around a while, all that stuff is there. Other people have collected it. They don't have anything on him because basically he came out of nowhere. But instead of saying, okay, how can I respond to what he's saying? It's like, let's see if we can undercut him and do all this awful stuff. And then the Democrats and the Republicans, it's all about who's going to win. It's not about us anymore, about what they can do for the people who supposedly voted them in. And then now this talk of civil war. This time, the red versus the blue. And all this goes on, and then you sit there and you try to focus on peace, and it gets very, very difficult. Because right now, the one thing that the world doesn't have seems to be is peace, and connected very much with peace is love. But I, for one, no matter how bad it gets, am not going to give up that dream of peace. And that dream has been going on for a long, long, long time. I'm only going to go back to 1964. This song's a little older than that, but this is one of my favorite versions of it, from Simon and Garfunkel's first album in '64.
Last night I had the strangest dream I ever dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all were prayed, and the people in the street below were dancing round and round, and guns and swords and uniforms were scattered on the ground. Last night I had the strangest dream I ever dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war.
And to hold on to that dream. Because I believe that no matter how bad it gets right now, change is coming. In fact, if you look at history, before those major changes that led to greater development, greater insight, heading to the next dimension, all these different terms that all these different authors and all talk about, before that, there's chaos. Things just seem to fall apart. You know, I think the Nordic people in their ancient religion had a concept of this. The god Loki is also known as the god of chaos, except that's not his full title. His full title is the god of chaos that leads to positive change. Loki would come in and disrupt everything, and then the people would respond to that and develop and grow through that chaos. We see that same concept within the crucifixion and resurrection stories of Jesus. It seems like the end of violent death, but it's through that death that the idea of resurrection and rising to a new life comes about. The guys, Greg Braden, Brenda was listening to one of his talks, and he's saying the same thing, that when he looks at the world right now and sees how it's just going into chaos and falling apart and fear and hate seem to be the norm, he says he thinks of the caterpillar that's going to turn into a butterfly. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar completely falls apart and becomes mush. And it's in that mush that life begins to come back together and a butterfly emerges. Now, the problem with these images is, to put it bluntly, it seems like the world's got to go through hell before it gets back to heaven. And we can see that that's happening. And then I think there's two responses we can take to that. One is, just sit back and be afraid and just hope it goes away and passes and it doesn't hurt us too much or whatever. The other is for each one of us in our own life to hold on to that peace and that love. To live it in our own life no matter what else happens. To not let anybody or anything take that away from us. To me, right now, that's what our spiritual toolbox should be about. What are the practices that bring us peace? What are the practices that allow us to love others no matter what? in our own life. Because I truly believe that it's through that love and peace will begin to spread. And your act of love to someone else may then cause them to have an act of love to someone else, and let's just multiply that out. When things seem to get darkest for me, and people have heard me use this image a lot because it's one of my favorites, it stems from St. Francis of Assisi, who said, as long as there's one lit candle, darkness cannot conquer. And I look in this room today, we got more than one lit candle. We look at what's going on in the world with the movement of more meditation, Hay House, Gaia, all this stuff's online, teaching people how to live positive lives. Lives of peace and lives of love, as opposed to lives of hate and lives of fear. There's more and more people coming forward saying, this is what we need to do. And for those of us who can see that and say, there is something good coming, there is a transformation after this time of chaos, I'm going to start living as if I'm there now. Because if we do that, we will be there, even though those around us may not be. For me, it's a concept that's deep in theology called the already and the not yet. It's what Jesus taught about the coming of the kingdom. He didn't teach that the kingdom was going to come a few millennium from now and God was going to come and establish the kingdom. Jesus said, no, the kingdom is here. We just have to reveal it by the way we live our life. And to me, that's an image of the transformation we are all looking for. That if we live it now in our own life, and more people began to live it in their own life, it's going to happen. And it's already happening. We just have to stay tied into it, especially deep within ourselves. Because the one thing I won't give up on is that I truly believe one person can make a difference. That's what's important about that one note to me in Kitaro's Song for Peace. That one note is soaring above the rest of the musical piece. And whenever I meditate to this song, I focus on that one note, realizing that in this world, I'm one note. And I can make a difference. One of my personal, I know when I mention some of these names, people go, I didn't know that was a spiritual master. One of my personal mentors, and I see as one of my spiritual masters, is Arlo Guthrie. I've been listening to Arlo for a long time. And he, at one concert, not one I went to, but I heard a recording of it. You know, we hear us talk about here of looking at the Bible with new eyes. And that's the New Thought way of doing it. Well, Arlo did that with the story of Joseph and his brothers. You know, remember that story? Joseph was the youngest and Jacob's favorite son. And Jacob made a special coat of many colors and gave it to Joseph, and his brothers were very, very, very jealous. So jealous that they decided they were going to kill him. And so they began to lay traps and scheme of catching him and then killing him. And one day they were planning to do it, and they had all the sheep grazing in a certain field, and they told Joseph they would be there. But the field kind of gave out, so they moved to another field. And when Joseph got there, he couldn't find his brothers. So he's kind of roaming around the field when this guy walked up to him and said, "What you doing? What you looking for?" And he said, "I'm looking for my brothers and their sheep. Have you seen them?" And the guy simply said, "They went that way." So Joseph followed him, followed the way he was pointing to, and he comes upon his brothers, not knowing they were ready for him. They kind of knocked him out and threw him in a pit. And while they were discussing whether to kill him or not, some Ishmaelites came roaming up. So they said, instead of being guilty of murder, let's just sell him to the Ishmaelites. So they sold him into slavery to the Ishmaelites, who ended up in Egypt, and they sold him to one of the higher officers in Egypt as a slave. But Joseph showed himself to be very smart and good with finances and running households and things like that. So his owner made him the head of the house, running all the businesses and things like that. Except his owner's wife decided she liked Joseph and wanted him. And Joseph kept saying, "No, you're the wife of my master. I'm not going to do that." So she got very angry with him and told her husband that Joseph tried to have his way with her. So he got angry and had Joseph thrown into prison. While Joseph is in prison, his cellmate was someone who was there because his master got mad at him, and he was bothered by these dreams. So Joseph interpreted the dreams for him. And one of those interpretations was, "You'll be freed soon." And lo and behold, he was. His master kind of recanted, and he was freed. He told Joseph, "I will remember you." Of course, once he got out of the cell, he forgot all about Joseph. Until the Pharaoh was troubled with some dreams he had, which was basically, he had a dream of seven very fat cows. And then all of a sudden, 7 very skinny and mangy cows come up and basically eat the 7 fat cows. And none of his wise men, priests, sages could interpret the dream. And that's when this guy told his servant, "Wait a minute, I know a guy in prison who's good with dreams." So they called Joseph, and he gave the interpretation that Egypt was going to have 7 years of plenty, of great crops, of abundant crops, followed by 7 years of famine. So the Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of the food. They built granaries, and in the 7 years of plenty, they saved food. So when the 7 years of famine hit, the rest of the world around Egypt was starving, and Egypt had food. Well, remember the brothers? They had heard that Egypt had food, so the father sent a couple of them there to see what was going on. So they get to Egypt and they start asking, and they said, "Oh, we'll bring you to the guy in charge." Imagine their shock when they walk in and it's their brother Joseph. And Joseph's first response is, "Welcome." He wasn't mad at them. And he told them, "Bring the family, bring all the wives and kids, and bring Dad." And they all went to Egypt. They were saved. And the people stayed in Egypt. And as years went by, they became more and more and more and more populous, to the point where a future king, Pharaoh, began to worry, "Wait a minute, there's too many of these people. What if they take over? Can't have that." So they put them all into slavery. And we know that from that comes Moses. And Moses brings them out of Egypt back to Israel. And from there, the kingdom develops, and we have David and Solomon, all the prophets that then lead to Jesus himself with his death and resurrection and the creation of faith in the West. And everything that we know is history. In fact, if it wasn't for Christianity, this unity wouldn't be here. It stems out of Christianity. So that story shows us how much happens. And what Arlo says is, it all revolved around that one guy. That one guy who said, who we have no name, simply said, they went that way. One person can make a major difference. One guy set into motion pretty much everything that we know. I believe that we ourselves can be like that one guy by simply saying, we got to go that way. This is what we need to do. We need to love each other. We need to live in peace, no matter what. And these changes can take place. They can happen. And they can happen in each and every one of us. I was listening to some later Paul Simon, and a few talks ago, I used one of his songs from his 2000 album, You're the One, called Love. And in the first release of this song in 2000, this is the third verse. The price that we pay when evil walks the planet and love is crushed like clay. The master races, the chosen people, the burning temple, the weeping cathedrals. Of course, my thoughts went right to Notre Dame de Paris. But that's where he ended that song in the year 2000. Very much not a happy ending. That evil has taken over. Well, last year, 18 years after he released that song, last year he put out an album called Under the Blue Light, where he took some of his favorite songs, not his hits, songs that he really liked, and he redid them. And this is one of them. The third verse changed a little bit at the end. The price that we pay when evil walks the planet and love is crushed like clay. When day breaks, hopes have come and gone. Just love yourself and pass it on. Love. In those 18 years, something obviously happened in Paul Simon's thoughts. Realizing that no matter how bad it gets, if hate seems to crush love, all we have to do is keep loving ourselves and then passing it on. And then someone else can pass it on, and someone else can pass it on. Not let everything that's going on around us in the world crush us. Hold on to that love. Just don't let anyone take it away. Because transformation is coming. It always does. But it might get worse before it gets better. You know, the old saying came from somewhere, it's always darkest before the dawn. So this is the cycles that humanity goes through. And it takes those who hold on to the truth that truly bring about that change and that transformation. No, it's not easy. No, I look at the news, I pull up SMN and see the horrific things that are going on, the language of hate that we hear in this country over and over again. Nobody talking anymore. Everybody taking their sides and just simply saying the other side is wrong. We see that every day. But what we got to ask ourselves is, what am I going to do about it? And there's nothing I myself can do about all these major issues. I think that's where people get discouraged. They go, well, I can't do anything about it. And that's what I think of that one guy who had no idea that he was changing the course of history. He just was there to help Joseph. He saw someone in need, went up to him and said, can I help you? And when Joseph said, have you seen my brothers and their sheep? He said, yeah, they went that way. And he made a major difference by simply showing compassion and love to someone who he saw was lost. And we need to do the same thing. And I truly believe that if we do that, that dream of peace can become a reality. If it becomes a reality in our own life, then it's already there. And we can just do our little part in spreading that to others. And as others spread that, and to others who spread that, and on and on and on. We need to first of all love ourselves. And once we love ourselves, then we can share that with others. We can pass it on in the hopes that they will pass it on, and they will pass it on, and it just begins to multiply. And eventually the darkness will be beaten down by the light. Peace will conquer war. Love will overshadow hate. And they will become the norms. But a norm that for us who live in peace and love now will feel normal, will feel wonderful. And it will prepare us to accept it when that time comes. So keep hoping, keep loving, and keep living that life of peace. So I want to end today with a song by Arlo that kind of reflects that, the idea of all of us working and living together.
I was watching the news tonight, and all over the world, people were singing and carrying signs. All over the world, everybody walking hand in hand through cities that I've been. And though I'm not there tonight, you know I'll be back again. I'll be back again. I'll be back again. I'm on a plane tonight for Germany, and all over the world there are lots of people just like you and me. All over the world who know the bomb must never fall again. All over the world, and we must all learn how to live as friends. All over the world, all over the world, all over the world.
So be that one guy who, without even knowing it, through that one simple act of kindness, changed the whole course of history. Amen. Blessed be. Namaste.
Paul, it's always so amazing how you use a blend of music and words and stories to deliver important messages. You reminded us of the intolerance that exists, but the light that we hold within each of us. And just to knowing that unity is a philosophy that honors all religions. And that song in the end was just quite beautiful. Thank you so much. This is that time of our service. We're invited to join in the. And just want to say ahead of time that anything that you're able to offer to our community is greatly appreciated, whether it's in the, as a donation or it's a prayer. It's all good, and it all works. Those of you that are watching us on Facebook, if you'd like to donate today, there is a post below the post that you're watching. If you just click on that, we'll be able to accept your offering. Great, thank you. Before we go over the announcements today, I'd just like to thank a couple of people that generously give up their time. Todd has been volunteering to run the audio-visual, so Todd, thank you. And Todd's wife, Joan, is our Facebook moderator. So she has done a lot of work in that area. Joan, thank you so much. Okay, we've got a few things that are going on this month. One thing is that we are still having our Second Harvest Food Bank Drive. So if you have soup or crackers, we have a box in the back, so please continue to bring, and then we will make sure that Second Harvest receives that. Apparently, we also have a desk that we have in the office that we're giving away for free. So if you'd like to see our furniture, please stop by. Also, we'd like to remind you that this Friday, we're going to bring back Spiritual Cinema Night. And so we've been talking about this, but we're going to show the movie called Awake. It's the story of Paramahansa Yogananda and his journey to the United States, and when he brought yoga and meditation. And if you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful story. And if you have seen it, it might be time to see it again. So we hope you'll join us. That's going to be Friday night. We'll start that at 7. Also, we're going to have a special service for Mother's Day. So please join us for that. If your mother doesn't attend here and you'd like to bring her for our service, please feel free to do so. It's going to be a lovely day that day. And then we also have our lunch bunch today. And Sam, where are we going?
We're doing Bobby Hebert's on Veterans Repair. If you'll let me know, I can reserve the table and everything.
Okay, so if you want to go to lunch bunch, please see Sam. For those of you that are new, after service is a group that continues on and shares lunch with each other. So it's just a real nice way for some more fellowship. And Sam coordinates that each Sunday.
I don't know if they're doing the meditation
And then Wednesday, we have our meditation and also the Course in Miracles class, and that starts here at 7. Do I have it? Anything else? I think we've got it all. Okay, great. Please join us in our closing song. We're going to do the peace song.
Oh, he doesn't have a choice. Okay.
Whichever song you'd like us to sing, we'll be happy to.
You can just sing the peace song.
Yeah.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful week.
Have our prayer for protection before we go. One quick prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Break it down. One light, one love. God is all there is. Keep on shining, shining, shining from the inside outside. I'm so happy, happy, happy. I just wanna shout. One life living as you and me, living as you and me, shining as you and me. God is all. Take a look at the person next to you. Say God loves you and I love you too. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat